Let me start with something most people won't admit. You don't usually feel controlled when you're being controlled. You feel guided. You feel informed. You feel like things finally make sense. That's usually a story doing its job. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Stories aren't used to give you clarity. They're used to decide your reactions in advance. Because once a story settles in your mind, you stop responding to reality. You respond to the story about reality. Let me show you what that looks like in real life. Think about work again. Someone leans over and says, "Just so you know, he's not very reliable." No report, no examples, no context, just a sentence. Now notice what happens over the next few weeks. Every delay confirms it. Every mistake stands out. Every success feels accidental. You're not observing anymore. You're confirming. That person didn't change. Your lens did. That's how stories work. They don't control actions directly. They control interpretation. And once interpretation is controlled, behavior follows naturally. Now look at how stories work socially. Why do certain opinions feel obvious the moment you hear them? Because they arrive wrapped in narrative. There's more going on behind the scenes. You have to understand the bigger picture. This is just how the world works. Those phrases don't explain anything. They signal that questioning is unnecessary, and the brain loves that. Because thinking is effort. Agreement is easy. Now, let's make this personal. Have you ever stayed longer than you should have because of a story? This will look bad if I quit now. This is part of the journey. Everyone goes through this phase. Those stories didn't come from data. They came from repetition. And repetition turns stories into truth without evidence ever showing up. Now here's something important. Stories don't just explain events. They assign roles. They quietly tell you who's smart, who's dangerous, who's trustworthy, who's difficult, who's one of us. Once roles are assigned, your choices narrow. You stop exploring. You start playing your part. That's not persuasion. That's positioning. Now look at power. Why do leaders lean on stories so heavily? Because facts invite debate. Stories invite loyalty. A leader who explains details risks questions. A leader who tells a story creates belonging. And belonging is stronger than logic. That's why people defend stories that hurt them. Because abandoning the story feels like abandoning the group. Now here's the part people don't like hearing. Stories don't just shape opinions, they shape identity. They tell you, people like you believe this. This is what success looks like. This is what failure means. This is what's acceptable. Once a story attaches to identity, challenging it feels dangerous. You're not disagreeing anymore. You're risking rejection, loss of status, loss of belonging. So people protect the story even when reality contradicts it. Now pause for a moment. How many beliefs do you hold because they were introduced as a story? How many fears came from something you heard over and over, not something you experienced? How many choices felt natural because alternatives were never presented? That's not weakness. That's how the human brain conserves energy. Stories bypass analysis and go straight for meaning. Now here's the shift. And this is where power comes back. Strong people don't try to eliminate stories. They step outside them. They ask slow, uncomfortable questions. Who benefits if I believe this story? What behavior does this story encourage? What does it make invisible? What happens if I refuse the role assigned to me? They don't ask, is this story inspiring? They ask, is this story narrowing my choices? Because stories are tools, and tools can either help you understand the world or quietly trap you inside someone else's version of it. So remember this. If a story makes you emotional very fast, pause. If it divides the world cleanly into heroes and villains, be cautious. And if it tells you who you are before you've chosen for yourself, that's not guidance, that's control. This was why stories are used to control you. Stay sharp.
Thanks for spending time with us. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the original books and resources we used today. We'll see you in the next one.